Hey everybody, Chris Petri here. Welcome everybody, welcome. Thanks for coming by. This is the Extreme Beginners video this week, and we're actually creating brand new videos every week for beginners. So if you're a beginner and you're coming here, welcome. Thanks for coming by, painting along with us, drawing and painting. We're going to cover a lot of interesting things on this video. Here we're doing a wonderful lighthouse. We're going to have fun doing this. We're going to show you all the methods and techniques to create this painting. It's a simple painting, very doable for anybody just starting out. So if you have one day or 1 week of experience, this is the painting you can do 100% of the time. You'll be able to accomplish this no problem. We cover everything right here. So basically we're just doing a simple lighthouse with a really beautiful blue sky wash here, nice and wet, the wet sky wash with lots of water, typical of watercolor medium. And then we have some interesting trees and bushes and plants and things along the bottom of the lighthouse on across this hillside here where the lighthouse rests upon, and some grass and some sand, some orangey brown sand and beautiful green grasses here, and then some more bushes and trees. And then even in the bottom here, if I zoom out just a little, you'll see a little bit of water. So we have some water at the bottom of this painting too as well. Just at the very bottom, a couple brush strokes of water that match the sky, which really makes it a nice kind of really pleasant looking painting with the sky and the bottom water kind of reflecting each other and bringing balance to the painting. So enjoy this painting, have a good time. We'll start right away in just a second, and we'll go over all the details you need, and we'll have lots of fun doing it. And you'll be really happy with the results, and you're going to be gaining a lot more knowledge, a lot more experience as a watercolor artist as you begin with doing this painting. All you have to do is stick with us for the next 45 minutes to an hour, and you'll have it. You'll be completed with a beautiful lighthouse painting along the beautiful ocean side. Fun painting to do, and we do all types of subject matter here on my channel. We do lighthouses, ocean, boats, flowers. We do cityscapes, we do landscapes with trees and mountains, we do figure painting. So we do it all here, everything watercolor. So if you just keep coming by week after week, you're going to learn a lot of information on watercolor, and that's the key. If you're watching every week, following along, even if you're not painting and drawing a specific painting that we're doing, you're still getting all the knowledge and watching all the techniques with brushwork, how we're using our colors in our palette, how we're applying the paint, all the little subtleties that make for big progress when you're trying to learn watercolor. So don't forget that. Even if you're taking a break and you're not drawing and painting 1 week or 2 weeks, at least watch the videos, because you're going to pick up a lot of information just watching and listening to what we're doing here, okay? So we'll get started in just a second. Hey everybody, this is Chris Petri. Thanks again. We're actually just getting started now. We're just sort of finished painting. So here at Extreme Beginners, we're basically just really focusing on the simple aspects of drawing and painting in watercolor. So when you're just starting out, you're not going to really be focusing too much on all the real critical, details of like fine painting, and you're more or less going to try to get the overall idea of design and layout of a painting. We're going to cover that right now, how to design and lay out your painting. That's the first step before, when you get your paper set, you got that, you tape down your paper, you have your palette ready to go, you have your drawing, you have your pencils, your drawing utensils, and you have your brushes ready. So basically you're ready to create a painting, but you just have to have that game plan of going in, how you're going to lay things out, how you're going to draw and lay things out in your rectangle. So basically, a rectangle, that's what we're dealing with here. If you're working from drawing or a painting, or if you're working from my finished videos, which I hope you'll do, I hope you'll take my video and pause it on the finished painting once it's completed, and then work from that. I think that's the best way to go. You can also stop and pause the video on the finished pencil drawing. So essentially you can work from the finished pencil drawing to start with, so you can get your drawing completed and get your hash marks on your tape. And then your second part would be to look at the finished painting when it's done, and then try to get that same color effect, the same tonal value effect of the lights and the darks in the painting. So you want to get the darks correct, and you want to get those light washes that are very, very light. You want to get those the same as the painting. So you're basically trying to match the painting that you're looking at. The only thing that changes if you decide to paint maybe from outdoors, or you're trying to paint from a photograph or something else, basically the same holds true. You're going to try to be copying or trying to translate what you're seeing and put it onto your paper. So that's the goal here. And then you can always, change up. You're the artist, you're starting out, you can do some different things. It doesn't really, the best thing is to kind of have a game plan, go with that first. So maybe you're going to do the processes that we do here first. You do those first, you learn those, and then once you start getting, your wind under your wings, and you're really starting to progress after a while, maybe a year or so, you start to add in some of your own little fine-tune adjustments to what you're doing that you like to do. And it doesn't necessarily be that you have to do everything my way. But if you start out with these fundamental basics like we're going to do, that's going to be a real help to you. So basically, doing the design and the layout of your painting first, that's just a real basic principle that all artists will do. They'll kind of want to get the overall layout of what they're going to create on their paper first, instead of maybe just going in and not having a game plan at all. So this is how we do it. So we're extreme beginners here. You're saying, hey Chris, I'm an extreme beginner. I'm just starting out. How do I design something from a photograph I have? I have a postcard, or I have a picture from a vacation. I want to create a painting of my vacation picture. How do I do that? It's real simple. You're just going to basically take whatever you're seeing and then just replicate it onto your rectangle, your paper, just like this. So you get your tape on, and then you look at the photograph. Now sometimes people will take photographs that aren't the best. They might take a picture of, let's say, we're going to do a lighthouse today. So let's say someone takes a picture of a lighthouse. Let me get some scrap paper here. So I'm just going to get some scrap paper to explain. So this is my scrap paper here. And I just want to explain that sometimes people, you might be included in this. You might not be up to speed on principles of taking really excellent pictures with your cameras, your iPhones. Probably you do a good job. You probably take great pictures. But let's just say you don't have any knowledge at all whatsoever at taking pictures on your phone or your camera, and maybe someone also that might be with you on vacation, they don't have any idea too. They don't really have a lot of knowledge about how to take good pictures. They might wind up taking a picture that looks like something like this, like you're looking at a scene of a lighthouse, and they take a picture of the lighthouse and it looks like this. And this might not be totally negative as far as the you might be thinking, well, I really like the sky, the sunset. So the sunset might be more of like a exciting part of the painting. So you can forgive the fact that you're at the lighthouse location looking at the lighthouse, and you're saying, well, look how small the lighthouse is. I can barely see it. But oh, the sky's really beautiful. So if you want to take a beautiful sky picture, this is a good way to do it. And let's say the ocean's here, or the sand in the shore. I can say, yeah, that's a good composition for a photograph. But if you're interested in the lighthouse portion of the picture taking, and you wanted to take a picture of the lighthouse and the person took this picture, you would say, well, that's not very good, because I was interested. I thought the lighthouse looked really good and interesting, and there's a house next to it, or what have you. So the proper way to maybe take the lighthouse picture would be, if this is the lighthouse, would be here, like this. So that would be preferable to this. If you were interested in taking a picture of the lighthouse itself, and that's what you were kind of focused on. You said, oh, I really want to take a nice picture of the lighthouse. So in essence, it depends on what you're looking at and how you're developing your design. But here in this design, we're interested in the lighthouse, and that's the important thing in the picture. So therefore, this is the better design versus this. If we were painting a sky painting where we were really interested in the sky, well, then this is okay. You know, you don't want to really key in or really focus too much on the lighthouse. It's there, it's cool, it looks good, it's a little interesting, it's like an interesting accompaniment to the sky picture, the sky that you're interested in, the beautiful sunset. So that's fine. But if you're interested in the lighthouse and you do this, that's not going to be a good design. So does that make sense? Does that really kind of clear that up? So it's important to get your design correct. If you're interested in the lighthouse and you want to paint the lighthouse, this is a better design. Having the lighthouse larger, more prominent, dominant, that's more of an interesting, beautiful lighthouse painting. If you brought this to a customer who might say, hey, create a painting of a lighthouse for me, and you create a lighthouse this small and the rest is all just sky washes and this kind of thing, they wouldn't be so happy. They'd say, oh, I wanted more of the lighthouse picture. You know, I wanted to see the lighthouse, the excitement part of that, and the light at the top, and the house next to it that's attached to it, and maybe some fences, and the beach here and stuff. So that's the key thing here. Is so we're doing a lighthouse painting right now. So we want to fill up this rectangle with the lighthouse like this. We don't want to just make a small tiny lighthouse in the middle of this painting and the rest is all just paper. So this is important to understand. So this is what we want to do. Now if you have a picture, a photograph, it's going to be hard to create the lighthouse from a photograph if you're looking at a photograph from vacation or in a book or a magazine. So you'd want to find a photograph that looks like this. So you're better off right away, whatever subject matter you're working from, you want to start with something that's going to be what you want your finished product to look like. That's all. So this is just like a real basic thing. Is you want whatever your painting is going to be, whatever you're going to create as far as your painting goes, you want it to have a good feel for design and to look really good and to be something that is exciting, and not kind of lost in the background of things. So here, if it's just a lighthouse, kind of lost in all of the skies and the fields and things, we would say, well, we didn't do a good job of that, doing the lighthouse, because we can barely see it. But here, we know we did a good job. We filled up the rectangle here with that lighthouse. So I hope that's really understandable and clear. We have to start with a good design to begin with. And then how we do that is we make sure when we're looking at our scene that's in front of us, if we're outdoors painting, or if we're working from a photograph, I'm working from a photograph across from me. For copyright issues, I can't show that photograph because it's someone else's work that's in a photograph online. So I'm just going to work with it, and hopefully you'll work from my finished painting, which I think is the best bet anyway. So let's start out. So I have my pencil here. It's just a simple retractable pencil, a 0.9 millimeter. So it's a 0.9 millimeter pencil, and we're going to look at the photograph across from us and say, okay, where's the lighthouse? Well, we can get some simple hash marks on our paper, on our tape, and say, well, where's the halfway point of our paper? Right here, center. Approximately. This is the center of the paper, like that, center. And let's go with where's the center on this side of the rectangle. Well, it's about here, approximately. Center is here. Approximately there. So we have our center point here, vertically, and our center point here, horizontally, like that. Now, when I look at my photograph across from me, all I'm going to do is say, all right, where is my lighthouse and my shoreline compared to these center marks? I'm looking and I'm saying, okay, my shore, actually the shoreline area, the actual ground area, the hill that the lighthouse is on, is a little lower than the halfway point, because I'm looking across from me and I can kind of see it's not quite halfway up the paper. So that's all you're doing right now is kind of gauging where your ground level is. Okay, that's perfect. we're just going to do this. And there we have it. We have a ground level point. So we take our pencil and we make our ground level point like this. Just like this. Okay, perfect. Now, we're going to say, where is the lighthouse? The ground level was simple. We just looked at the photograph and said, yeah, about not quite halfway up. So this is halfway. A little lower than halfway was the ground level. So we put that in. Now, where's the lighthouse compared on my center mark here vertically? The lighthouse is sitting vertically like this. Where is my lighthouse? Well, this is center. I'm looking at my photograph and I'm saying the lighthouse is off center about this much. So my lighthouse is here. That's simple enough. Okay, now my lighthouse is here. Where's the top of the lighthouse in that photograph that I'm looking at across from me? Well, it's the very, very tippy top of the lighthouse is about this much below the top of the rectangle. That's all. That's simple. All right, so we have that. We have the tippy top of the lighthouse right there. The ball on top of the cone. Okay, so now we have that. Good, we have that. And the lighthouse goes from the ground level up to here, to the tippy top of that ball is our lighthouse. Simple enough. Okay, so we have basically, really, we've covered a lot so far. We've gotten our ground level here. We've got our lighthouse location, which is here, lighthouse. Perfect. And that's all we need. Now to do our lighthouse, we might take another scrap piece of paper just to kind of get an idea. Okay, so for our lighthouse, we notice that it's really just a series of simple shapes. So right now I'm going to do the simple shapes of the lighthouse on a piece of scrap paper first, and I hope you'll do this. I hope you'll get a piece of scrap paper before you do your lighthouse on your watercolor paper and just kind of maybe give it a dry run. Do like a couple dry runs, at least one. Try to do one, practice run of it first. This way you're more comfortable with it. Does that seem like a good game plan? If you practice it one time before you draw it on your watercolor paper, that's one time you've practiced it. And this way when you go to do it on your watercolor paper, it's going to look much better because you've already practiced it one time, you're a little more familiar with it, you have the feel for it. So here we have the lighthouse. Basically we can look at it and just say that it's a square here, another square here, and then it's a rectangle here. And it tapers out a little bit, so it's not perfectly, it's got a little bit of a flare to it. Can you see how that flares out a little bit? So it flares out a little bit here and here. We wouldn't want to do this, right? That wouldn't look right. It's got to be almost straight, but it's not completely straight like a rectangle like that. It's got a little bit of a flare like this. Okay, so it's got that little bit of a flare. That would be over exaggerated and wouldn't look good, wouldn't look realistic. This would be too straight, too much like a rectangle with no flare to the bottom of it. And this is the perfect look you want. A little bit of a flare to the lines as they go down, like this way. A little bit of an angle, both sides going out. So we got that there, an angle this way, an angle this way. And then we have basically a triangle at the top, like that. And that's just a simple shape of a triangle. And then on top of that is a ball, like that. And then there's a few more final details to that, but that's really the basics of it. So a square, and then a rectangle, like this, but you flare out the bottom just a little bit. And if you needed to, you could always, if you're going to draw the lighthouse and you need to figure out how much to flare that bottom section out, you could always in very light pencil. So let's do that. Let's take a pencil. Very light pencil, you could take like this, draw in very, very super light pencil marks, barely visible. Only you can see it, but it's very, very barely visible. You start out and just make a straight rectangle like this. You can even use a ruler. You could use a ruler to make your straight rectangle like this, and like this, right? Then you could say, let's measure over just a little bit, and you might say, okay, I need to make it 5 millimeters, or yeah, let's say 3 millimeters. 3 millimeters there, 3 millimeters there. Then you take that, and you go up to that point like that, and you take this, and you go like this, and you have it a perfect angle like that, where it's just a little bit of a flare like that. Like that. And these, of course, are just squares. And this is basically a triangle with a... Okay, so that's really the simplicity of it, to get your lighthouse in here. And that should be fine. So let's draw that in, and let's do it ourselves. Okay, so we have our ball on top of the lighthouse here. Then we're going to do our triangle, like so. Then I'll use a ruler. I'll make my square there. And I'll make another square underneath. And then this goes out a little bit beyond, like that. And then I flare it out just a little bit on each side. Just like that. That looks good. So that's my lighthouse, and then you can draw over the top of it. And you can just draw over the top of it with your pencil lines, a little darker, like that. And then we have a stripe on it, a red stripe, and that is not quite, so let's see, it's about here. And then the other stripe is about here, like that. And there's a window over here, like that. And there's a window down here, like so. And that's all you have to worry about. That looks good. We're going to make the railings over here and the catwalk. And that's just another bit of detail we do here. Some railings and the catwalk here, and then up here at the light level, where the light is, that's the same thing. There's another catwalk and railings there, very light. And then there's the light itself, the glass and the framing of the light itself. So it's just an area of grids. And then basically if we wanted to detail in on this, essentially we have the cone like so. That's the triangle. Then we have the light itself. Then we have the bottom portion of the lighthouse there where the steel is, that's all painted black. And then we have the railings here and also here, so you have two sets of railings. So you have railings here, you have railings here, and those go across like that. No sense to make them too perfect. You just try to do them as best you can, but don't be too critical of it. And they go around this way, behind the other side of the lighthouse. This is all black here, painted black, so you'll kind of, you're not going to see a lot of the detail on this section here, so you could almost say that this is all black, paint, and you're not going to see much of the details of the railings here. But up here you'll see a little more details of the railing. And then you have the glass of the lighthouse, which is here. And those are that's the glass of the lighthouse. And then you have the top, the cone on top, like so. And you can see a little bit of the underside of it there. But that's basically the design of it. And then this is the bottom painted here. This is the white and red paint. So you have the red stripe here, and this is the white, and there's a window over here. So I'm just doing more of like a zoom in on it, but that's basically it. And then the light is in here, the actual physical light, and that's really about it. So that's the close-up detail of the cone, the actual light itself, the hand railings around the light area, and then this lower section with the railings around this part here, and the rest of the lighthouse below, which is a little more simple. So this is good reference if you need as you're drawing it at home in your studio. Okay, so now we have this here. We have everything drawn in, and we're almost set to start painting. So yeah, we're going to start painting actually in a second or two. Let's take a quick break. We've done a lot of work so far, and I hope you're really having fun with this. You can kind of see it's a very simple layout. It's not a lot of really tremendously challenging hash marks in different alignment areas where you're having to hit marks and find your mark on things. Here you're just going with a little bit below the center line horizontally. You're going to have your hill, which the lighthouse sits upon. And then here your lighthouse is not quite center. It's a little off to the right of the center of the picture. But we do have a large lighthouse here. That's very clear to see. That's what we want, a good design where we have a beautiful lighthouse here, and then the hills here, and then a little bit of water maybe down below here. And that's really what we want to do. Maybe we could put some water down here, and this will be all hills and grass and some sand dunes and things like that. So we'll have fun with this and just create our own fun painting of it. But this is basically all the layout and design you need to get a good lighthouse completed for watercolor. So let's take a break and we'll come right back. And I always mention, hey, before I take a break, there's a button down there below on the right hand side, subscribe. Please subscribe. We're here for you week after week, month after month, and year after year on YouTube. We're creating all the watercolor paintings you could ever imagine. We're doing lighthouses, boat paintings, seascapes. You love all this stuff with the beautiful seascape style paintings. We also do landscape paintings with barns and trees, and we also do figure painting, portrait painting. We also create beautiful flower paintings. So we do it all here. It's all watercolor. And especially now we have this beginner series. We're doing work with just the basic materials you need to start out with. If you're just starting out, you might not want to do watercolor. You might decide it's not really for me. Well, then you haven't invested hundreds of dollars into paint brushes and all kinds of fancy stuff. You start out with a $5 palette like this here. This is an inexpensive watercolor paper. The pad only cost about $6. And you need a pencil or a pen to draw with, and you're all set. You're ready to go, and you're ready to paint and draw and watercolor. And you start this way for your first, 6 months or a year until you get up and running. And then you decide if you want to get more interested in it, and then you can get a better brush or two. And then you can get a better palette, maybe with some better paints. But for right now, let's stick to the basics. We don't need all the fancy equipment. We can just make do with what we have, and we'll get beautiful results from it. Okay, so again, please consider subscribing so you're always alerted when our new videos come out. And then other than that, you'll be ready to watch and paint and draw too. If you like the painting and the drawing here that we're doing, well, then you're going to paint along and join with us. And if maybe you want to do flowers and you're not too happy about doing seascapes and lighthouses, well, at least watch and learn how we lay out our paintings like this here. Learn about how we mix our colors, learn how we use our brush, learn how we create our light and shadows in our paintings. So you can learn a lot just by watching. You don't have to necessarily draw and paint this painting. And that's why I say if you subscribe, you'll know the terms that we're using, you'll understand the colors, the ways we use our brushes, the way we lay out our paintings and we design things. You'll learn all the basics you need to get better at your watercolors. And I know that's what you want, and that's why you're here. So let me take a break, and I'll be right back. Okay, we're getting started. We're going to create our painting now. We're going to get in and spritz our palette. So this is our typical prep work here. Now we're going to spritz our paint just a little bit here with a spritzer bottle. You could just also take a little bit of water on your brush. I have clean, fresh water in my water pail next to me. You can use anything for your water pail, a glass, a coffee mug, a nice heavy glass, a nice heavy mug. You don't want to use a glass or a mug that's light. You want to have one with a heavy bottom. You know those glasses? Those glasses with the really thick glass bottoms that are really heavy at the bottom, that's what you want for your water, if you're going to use something like that. Or you can purchase for like $5. They have these plastic ones I have here. These are by Holbein. They're plastic collapsible water containers. These are also good. I use these. You can spritz on your paints with a little bit of a paintbrush with some water. You go into the water bucket, get some water on your brush, and then you just splash your paints. It's a good way to practice splashing technique too. If you're used to tapping on your brush like this onto your paints with your paintbrush, then you're going to be more comfortable when you're doing splashing techniques when you're in your painting. So that's also a help too. So if you're not using a spritzer bottle, that's fine. But I will use a spritzer bottle for this over here. I want to clean up the palette just a little bit. It's always good to start out each painting with a fresh, clean palette. Even clean your palette as you go through your painting when you take breaks. Maybe you clean up your palette a little bit. I have my brushes here. I'm going to use a couple square flat brushes. My basic rule of thumb is paper towels to wipe the palette down, because paper towels tend not to have any oil in them or excessive amounts of oil. So when you wipe down your palette, actually there's no oil residue left on your palette, so you don't get that funny beading effect where, you know, it's kind of like that the paint beads up and kind of bubbles on top of the plastic, or if you're using a metal palette or something like that, you know, using your paper towels will kind of alleviate having that problem. And then I use my tissues for drying off my brush when I'm doing my painting. I always like to dry my brush off a little bit before after I rinse off the brush in the bucket, in the water bucket. I stop here first at the tissue and then go in and get my paint. So that's my usual. Those are really important techniques. I mention that because if you really want to keep doing that all the time for your technique, so that you practice it over and over, and then it just becomes natural that your technique is to always, you know, rinse your brush off and then tap it off on some paper towel or some tissue or even a sponge. You can keep a sponge next to your water bucket. So you stop at the sponge first. After you rinse your watercolor brush off, you tap on the sponge a little, because you don't want flooding, dripping paintbrush going over into the palette, flooding your palette with all kinds of crazy water. It'll make a mess of your paints, and it'll cause you not to be able to get good colors on your paper. So that's one thing to avoid, is over wetting your palette with too much water that's flowing off your brush. You want to keep that water you know, at a minimum on your brush. So I'll keep that sponge over there too. I sometimes use the sponge too as well. Also an apron. I wear an apron most times when I paint, so I'll tap my brush on my apron. I just rinse my brush off and then tap it on my apron and then go over to my paints. And I'll put on my apron. I forgot to do that. I have one of my favorite t-shirts on here. I don't want to ruin it by putting paint on the front of it. And let's get started here. So the first thing we'll do is let's start off with our small. So we have a couple flat brushes and then a round brush. So the round brush is pointy, really pointy. That'll be good for the details up here at the top of the lighthouse. And then these brushes here will be good for the sky washes and the ground level washes here. So let's begin, and I'm going to start off with the small flat brush. This is maybe like 3/8 of an inch. a number 6, and this is the Princeton flat brushes. It's called Princeton shader. It's called the shader. And this one here is a 5/8 wash brush by Princeton Art, and it's got the natural wood handles. These are synthetic watercolor brushes. So the first thing we'll do is, I'll tell you what, I think I'm going to go right away with a large brush. Since this lighthouse is pretty much either very, very dark at the top with the black or red here, we could go over the whole thing with a wash of blue. So let's do that. Let's get our sky wash in first. So let's do our sky wash first. You have to imagine when you're doing watercolor, you strategize a little bit. So sometimes it's better you can do all the wash on the sky first and then do whatever painting you have to do over top. Or sometimes it's better just to do all your painting first and then just add in a little bit of sky wash. It depends. You'll learn it as we go here. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know as we go. This painting, we're looking at doing the sky wash first. I'll mix a couple different variations of blue and green. This blue is up here, so I'll go dark blue up here, a medium blue here, like so, darker blue up here. And I might just put in a little bit of brown in each, just to give it a little bit of some grayness to it. And you want to make it a little darker because it always lightens up whenever you put watercolor paint on paper. It lightens up, but this is a light sky on this painting. All right, let's get started here. Before we do this even, let's rinse our brush. Let's paint around the lighthouse with some damp brush and just create a damp line around your, here it doesn't matter, you can go into the ground level here with your water, but we're going to put some water on the paper. So let's get that water on the paper. Up here is okay. We can go right over the top of the lighthouse up there, splash some water on, not everywhere, here and there, just put some water on there. But you do want to go around the lighthouse with a damp brush so that the paint doesn't flow into the lighthouse. So you'll see I go around it, and then over the top here is okay. Okay, so you see we have some fresh, clean water on the paper, number 1. Number 2 is we went around the bottom of the lighthouse with fresh, clean water and a damp brush to outline the lighthouse. And this will prevent all of the paint from flowing into the lighthouse itself. We want to keep that isolated from getting all kinds of flowing paint going into that area. So now we go in and we'll start picking up our paint, and let's get some paint on there. And we're just going to put some paint on here and there. At first, just kind of randomly put it on here and there, not everywhere. Maybe up top on the top border all the way. Fill that up on the top, but then as you go down lower, just kind of let it flow and let some of it so maybe we're leaving some room for some clouds. Like that. How does that look? Pretty good, right? We didn't fill in everything. We left some white paper. You can put some more darker wash in there, like that. Typically the darker paint is up top on the sky and it gets lighter as it goes lower, so you can't go wrong with going a little darker up top, like that. Doesn't matter if it flows down, that looks good. Watercolor is watercolor, lots of water. Let that water flow down the page like so. Then we're going to add a little touch of orange here, just to give it that little bit of that around the horizon line. There's always that little bit of orange glow that happens. and you just blend it into there like that. See, not too many brush strokes, right? I'm just getting what I have to get in there and then stopping and getting out of there. I'm not fussing around too much. So you can kind of see, look how quick that was. And you can blend that into the top of the, you can blend that into the ground level because the ground's going to be darker. And as we recall, when we looked at the first picture of the painting on the very first part of the video, you noticed that the ground was darker, much darker than the top portion of the painting where the sky is. So that's all you have to remember. So you can put a little bit of wash down here with some blue, like that, just to scrub around some blue paint. That doesn't hurt anything. Probably will harmonize it actually a little better. Just like that. Scrub a little bit of blue on there, just like so. We're going over all dark colors over here. Can do some. Okay, the light is coming from over here. So let's take a little bit of this blue and blend in a little blue along the shade side. So over here on this side of the lighthouse, the left side of the lighthouse here, there's some shade. That's the shadow side of the lighthouse. So we want to blend in that like so. Then we take our damp brush, dry off the water, clean fresh water, dry off that, and then just lightly blend that over this way. And then leave white paper on the right side of this, over here. So we leave white paper over here. We put a little shadow on this side and we blend it over ever so slightly with a damp brush. So we soften that shadow this way toward the middle of the lighthouse, and that's fine. And we're going to let this all dry 100% now. That's the main key. Let this dry 100%. If you want to use a blow dryer so you can keep working quicker, that's fine too. So what you would do is at this point now, I'm going to take a break. While I take a break, I'll do the blow drying on this end, and you can do the blow drying on your end. So you guys will all grab your blow dryers now, dry up your paper 100%, let it dry 100%, and then we can get started. And we're going to finish up here. Not a tremendous amount left here. We'll do the bottom portion, the grass and the sand, some of the sandy areas and grass and weeds and bushes down here. And then we're just going to add our colors to our lighthouse, which is a red stripe and some black details on the top of the lighthouse where the cone is and the ball and some of the railings and things like that. So we'll get all the details in. Stick with us here. We're going to keep going every step of the way here. We're going to show you each detail, how you do it, and we'll have lots of fun in the meantime. Okay, so let's take a quick break. And again, I'm going to take my blow dryer and dry this off 100%, and this way I can keep working. Okay, I'll be right back. We're back in business here. We're going to keep going. Let's get our brushes again here. We let this dry 100%. So this might be a painting where you can always do this painting and then let it dry overnight. It'll be 100% complete by the next day, or even a couple hours. Usually it takes about a couple hours for it to dry off completely. Or we use a blow dryer just to dry it off. That works as well. And let's get ourselves back to our painting, and I'm going to get some red paint now. We're going to get some red paint here. So we're going to use our two different reds. We've got like a orangey red and then a more cooler red, like a so we're going to mix those two reds together, and even an orangey red, or an orange actually here, a red orange here. Let's do those. And then maybe there's a little bit of a brown and blue over here on the shadow side. So let's start with the shadow side with a little bit of blue mixed with the red. Like that. Be careful not to rest your hand in any paint as you go. But if you do, that's not a problem. Then we'll pick up the straight red here. And then it's a little bit lighter over here, so we can take our brush, have a little bit of tissue or paper towel, dry off the brush, rinse off the brush, take a little water off the brush, and then we can just smooth out this red over here, make it a little lighter over here. This is where the light is on the right side, like that. And then we can always go in and get some more red here and just make it a little darker there, like that. That looks pretty good. And then if you have to like do a little bit of, there's a little bit of an arch to this, a little bit of a radius, a little bit of an angle. Can you kind of see that? It's a little bit, not much. Same down below here. There's a little bit of a, it's not quite a straight line. If you want to make it a straight line, that's fine. But this gives it a more rounded feel if you can add that little tiny bit of arch to that, or the arc to it, some radius, some little slight curve to those two lines here, and that makes it look a little more interesting. And then we have here some orange, and yeah, orange looks good there. Orange, that looks pretty good. And there's a little bit of orange here under the shadow, like that. Then I rinse my brush, dry off the brush, and have just a damp brush, and then just smooth it out like that. So we have that little bit of a shadow there. A little bit of blue doesn't hurt. Dab a little blue in there. Just with a damp brush though, don't add too much water. And then the same thing here. And then we just use a damp brush here. We rinse off the brush, dry off the brush on the paper towel, and then use a damp brush just to smooth out that wash to make it look like it's softer and lighter as it goes from the left to the right, so that you feel that light on this side kind of going around and the shadows on this side over here. Okay, so that's our shadow for the lighthouse. And then we're going to, let's do the details of the lighthouse. So we have our round brush now. We can kind of see that's very pointy, very round. And we're going to use black. And maybe we'll add in some brown to the black, so we don't want to make it completely black 100%. Let's mix in a little color to it, some brown and maybe some blue. So some red too. Add a little mixture to it, a little variety to your blacks. And then you dry it off on this paper towel here. And then we're going to do our cone at the top. So we have our cone at the top there. Then what we do is we rinse off the brush, dry off the water on the tissue, and then we just smooth out that dark there so that it's a light gray, because there's light coming this way. And if we always remember, let's put our light insignia at the top of our painting on our tape, like that. That is your key indicator where your light is coming from, your light source, the sunlight in this case. The sunlight's coming across the picture this way. So whenever you're in the middle of your painting and you're doing a section of painting and you're going, oh, wait a minute, where's the light coming from? You just look at the top of your tape up here, and you already have your insignia when you start out with. We forgot to do it when we started the painting, or the drawing, I should say. But when you start your drawing and you're doing your layout, always a good habit to get your little light source icon on your tape or on your paper, so that you know where your light is at all times. So at any time when you're working anywhere in your painting, you can look right up and go, oh, yep, light's coming from this way. And then you can put your shadow in on this side of the lighthouse. All right, so we have our lighthouse. It's coming along nicely. Here we're going to do the base. of the lighthouse, the light, the actual light itself. And we're going to do that. And then we're going to do our main light section with our, those are the frames that go around the light that hold the glass in place. And then there's some lines across there. Then there's the railings. I'm doing upstrokes like this. Carefully, my hand's resting on the paper. All this is dry, so this paper is 100% dry. This way I can rest my hand on the paper, and then I just use my brush and just kind of, I have good control, like you're drawing or like you're like a pencil or a pen. If you're doing writing, if you're writing a letter, if you're filling out paperwork, whatever it is, you always rest your hand on. It's the same way with watercolor painting. Your hand is resting on the paper, and you're in control of your brush at that point. And then we just put in our railings here. They don't have to be perfect. That looks good. That looks good. We're going to put our window over here very carefully. We want to be careful with our small details. That's why we're using this really fine pointed brush. We would not try to do any of these details we're working on now with this brush. You could probably do it this way if you tapped along, but much better to do it with this brush here with the point. So we have that done. This is the railing, like that. So that's the catwalk that goes around. And there might be some supports for the catwalk there. But you don't have to get into too much detail. That looks good. And now we're having more fun. This is going to be the easier portion. We're going to do our greens and our sand and things along this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to create our sand, brown, and green. So I'll mix up my two greens, a brighter green, mix in some brown, mix in some orange to that too, and that comes up to a nice greenish brown like that. That looks all right. We'll see as we go here, and then we're just going to take our flat brush, really large brush, and we'll just start putting some darks there. And the key to this, change the way you're using your brush the whole time. Do a little tapping, do a little bit of flat brushing here. Variety is the key. You want variety whenever you're doing something. You wouldn't want to just go one straight flow across like this. That would be boring, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that look boring if I just went whoop all the way across? That would look boring. So you take it and you brush, and you use your brush this way, spin it this way, spin it that way, little, you know, like that. Now we move down a little bit. You can leave a little bit of a few gaps of white paper, like so. And that looks good. Then we're going to get some more golden color. So we'll take some of that gold. Yellow. If you see you're making a color and it doesn't look great, try to work with it and see if you can get it to what you need it. This is going to look okay, I think. It's kind of like an orangey sand color. Yeah, that looks pretty good. Okay, now I'm doing my orangey sand color. There we go. Kind of, you know, this is not too difficult here. We're just trying to get some of that orange sand color, like so. Like that. Looks good. Then we're going to go with another green, but we're going to change up here and do like a medium green, like a lighter green color. So we're going to go with our lighter green here with just a touch of brown. like that. And now look at this, watch this. There we go. Okay, there we have some more changes. Some brown, darker browns, some golds, some greens. You can add in a little gold in here too. Take some of that gold and kind of blend in some gold along there, like so. Then we're going to go back into our darker colors again. Greens, browns, green, brown, orange. Maybe some blue in there. It's going to be a little darker now. Blue, going with some blue. Some green, more green, dark green. Does that look good? I think that looks good. Maybe some red. Kind of hard to tell sometimes, but I think that's going to look okay. Yep, darker yet. That looks good. And again, I'm trying to flick on the brush, just get some different stuff going on there, some different shapes. Like that. Then I scrub along the bottom here like so. Okay. And then maybe we're going to do a lot more sand here. So that yellow and orange with a touch of the brownish color. And scrub that on like so. There we go, that's some sand. Now, we're gonna have to clean the palette a little bit. Let's get some paper towel. I'm going to take a paper towel, wet the paper towel, and I think I'm going to clear these two sections here. Like that. And then maybe we're going to go in and get some blues. Put some water in. Why not? Let's have a little water in here. And this is just a fun lighthouse picture to do. It doesn't have to be perfect. Let's do some water here. Some nice water at the bottom of our picture. Like that. And then maybe we take some sand color and splash on some, a little bit of splashing here at the bottom of the painting. There we go. So we have a really fun, easy lighthouse painting. You know, you can change things around. This is just a really fun, quick painting to do, just to practice up on some drawing skills, practice up on some washes, letting everything dry, and then once everything dries, you do your details on your lighthouse, and then you can do some washes here for your grass and your sand, and you know, have a good time with this. And I think you'll have a fun time. It's really a freeing experience just to do a painting like this where you're not really suffering over all the details of doing some phenomenal, incredible design work or too many. Have some fun, get some washes on the paper. You can see once we frame it out with our tape, when we take our tape off, it looks a lot better. Like so. And we'll show this again at the beginning of the video, but you can kind of see it's very primitive looking. You know, it's just a primitive lighthouse, sky wash, and then some horizontal brush work across here just to create the illusion of some some bushes and trees and grass and sand here, and then some water along the shoreline. So very primitive, very basic. Try a couple of these just for fun. Loosen up. This could be a good loosening up exercise if you just want to put a quick painting together, you know. I also do on my channel more detailed paintings with more layout, more details and sophisticated type designs. That's fine too. Jump in, try those, try parts of those. If you want to start trying some more advanced paintings, if you're watching my channel all the time and you're subscribed, if you're subscribed down below on the right hand side, if you hit that subscribe button, you'll see my videos every week. We do, you know, maybe 2 or 3 videos a week. You can try those more advanced paintings too if you want, or if you just want to stick with the real simpler paintings at first, because if we're just beginning in watercolor, try to make some easy paintings that go quick for you so you can get them down, get them done fast, and step back and look at it and be happy with it, and you know, and you're going to be on to your next painting, or maybe you're going to do this 2 or 3 times. Maybe you'll come up with some different design ideas than I have here. Maybe you might make some rocks, make this on top of a rocky mountain or mountainous kind of area, and then maybe, you know, try this with the grass and the bushes and things, and then maybe try one with some dark black rocks or something. You know, you create your own ideas too. Have fun with it. Be creative. Have fun. Enjoy the watercolor medium, doing things differently. And again, I always say, you know, try different things too, as well as what I'm showing here. And this way you're feeling like you're getting your creative process going and your creative juices flowing, and you'll be happier. And one great artist one time told me, the things that you figure out on your own are going to be the most exciting things that you have in your watercolor and in your artwork, is the things that you kind of develop on your own that no one really told you to do, that you just sort of kind of developed on your own. So that's definitely a good thing to remember when you do little offshoots of what I'm doing and try some things on your own. You're going to find some things that you might be really happy with, and you're going to be like, hey, and I did it on my own. I created it myself. And you'll feel better because, you know, sometimes if we're doing some teaching here, you know, you might say, I'm kind of bored. Chris is teaching the same thing today that he did the last week or something. But hey, try something new on your own too. Don't be afraid to do that. Go for it. Have a great time at it. And we'll see you on the next video, okay? Happy painting, everybody. And thanks for all the great comments and well wishes and all the great feedback that all of you have brought to the table on YouTube, on my comments section. And again, I thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye-bye.